Authors Press.
Hey, it's Benji Cole, son of Al Cole from CBS Radio, welcoming you to another edition of People of Distinction, the talk that gives an in-depth view of some of the most dynamic, intelligent, and successful people on the planet. And on the line with us today, we have Brent Asay. We'll be discussing his new book, Endless Horizons, Journeys Within a Journey. Available on authorspress.com, or you can go directly to his website. That's going to be authorBrentAsay.com. Spell that out for you quickly. That's going to be author, traditional spelling of that, AUTHOR, Brent, BRENT, ACASAY.com. And guys, just so you're aware, as I stated, you can also find it on authorpress.com. Brent was brought to People of Distinction today by authorspress.com. So if you have a book that you need moved, guys, you have to reach out to our good friends over on Authors Press. Now, I'm so excited to have Brent here on the line with us today, because really the book that we're going to be discussing is a book that I'm sure a lot of us have read similar books to it, right? Really, it's almost like a self-help narrative. Brent is going to be talking about his life's journey or certain aspects of his life's journey. But what is beautiful in the way that he's constructed and wonderful about the way that he's constructed it is it's not just a direct narrative in the way that he's written. It's actually a poetry book. So going through, really discussing the meaning of life, or the obstacles and the adversity that we will come to face in our lives, but putting it in a very unique way in that poetic form. And really the message behind it that we can all really get on board with is it's really about life and the lessons to be learned in life, and really everything that we come across and everything that we do, how nothing is to be taken lightly. There could be lessons that are learned in every single aspect. And really what I love about that is, just speaking from my own experience, that old cliche always rings true in terms of everything happening for a reason. All right. So we've all heard the phrase. And, whether you believe in it or you don't, it's really such a powerful message. And it's something that I've always kind of adhered to, and trying to find the silver lining or the message behind things, and particularly with regard to the negative aspects and the negative things that have happened in my life. For me, it's always been something that if I can find the reason or the lesson to be learned here, then that negative action or that negative occurrence doesn't have to happen in vain. Right? And how do we utilize that and continue to push forward and continue to move forward that way? And really, that is one of the powerful messages here that Brent is going to be able to talk to us about and really explain to us here on People of Distinction. So without further ado, we have Brent here on the line. Brent, first and foremost, man, thank you so much for being a guest with us on People of Distinction. How are you today?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Well, we're definitely looking forward to this and looking forward to the message that you'll be able to bring to our listening audience. So let's not keep them waiting anymore. Talk to us about the book, Endless Horizons, Journeys Within a Journey. Give us a brief synopsis, Brent.
Well, Endless Horizons is a book of poetry. It's multi-themed, a lot of themes, but pulled from life, family, home, God, country, nature, love, or lack thereof. Sports is in there, some sports poems, and some of it reflects my experience with some adversity I've had in my life of battling with a chronic form of muscular dystrophy called Becker's palsy, and so some of my poems would reflect some of my insights and understanding I've gained from life.
Absolutely.
As a result of dealing with that adversity.
Fantastic. What's amazing about, first and foremost, really what I always love when I talk to authors that are daring enough to really pull from their own reflection and their own experiences, I think it's always commendable, because a lot of time holding that mirror up, of course, absolutely. You know, I think a lot of times, just as human beings, right, holding that mirror up to ourselves and really recognizing it and facing it ourselves is always quite a feat. And then being brave enough to go ahead and put that on paper for others to see those aspects of our lives, again, I find very admirable and always commendable to be able to do that, because I understand that it's not an easy thing to do, and it's something that, you know, I have struggled with at certain points of my life as well. Really being brave enough, again, to show that transparency. Now, Brent, next question that I have, talk to us about the title. I mean, it's such an intriguing title, and the imagery that just comes to one's mind just from reading it is amazing. But how did you develop the title, Endless Horizons, Journeys Within a Journey? Why did that manifest itself, and what did that mean to you to name your book that particular title?
Well, the idea of Journeys Within a Journey is just our journeys through life on a daily, weekly, yearly basis. We take many journeys, and then Endless Horizons, that to me, I think of the sunset we see every evening. We see a horizon every day. And I've lived 63 years, so it seemed rather endless, all those horizons that I've seen in the form of the sunsets out my window. And so I just thought that was a very apt way to title the book, as a lot of the poetry is derived from my experiences in life, both good and bad, and
I agree.
So
yeah, I mean, you're talking about how applicable it is, and absolutely. You know, one thing for me when I was starting to do the research, of course, in preparation for this interview, really just the title itself, again, Journeys Within a Journey, Endless Horizons. You know, you see the imagery, of course, is the horizon, right? The sun setting or the sun coming up, and you know, the message behind it, and really hearing you talk about the life lessons that are learned and to be learned from that. You know, it's kind of like there again, endless horizons, right? Life will go on. The journey will continue to happen, and regardless of the particular situation in which you may be going through. And as you put, there's a lot of different aspects of life and a lot of different journeys that you tackled in this book. I mean, you talked about sports things and, you know, just a lot of different occurrences. And what I love about that is, again, that endless journey, that life will just continue. And you know, really being able to work through it, and as you stated, you know, before, is just the learning from those lessons, and how there's things to be gained in every single thing that you come across. And I think that is wonderful, and again, something that everyone here in our human family and listening in on our People of Distinction interview will be able to pull from this. Now, talk to us, Brent. Talk to us, Brent, about the inspiration behind writing this book. I mean, did you always see yourself as an author? Where did that creative state of mind develop from?
Well, I'd have to go back even before I thought of putting together this book, to when I was in high school. I had these athletic dreams growing up, and because of my condition, those athletic dreams would not come to fruition. Yeah. And that realization came as early as, you know, my sophomore year of high school. And so I was really trying to search for an outlet of expression. It wasn't going to be in sports or athletics. And interestingly enough, I purchased an album by the rock group The Moody Blues called The Days of Future Past. And I thought the music was cool sounding. It sounded great. But in that album, they have poetry that they recite. And when I heard that, I thought to myself, I want to do that. I want to write words like that. And that really, and combined with then, I had a wonderful sophomore English teacher named Miss Brown, Richardson High School in Dallas, Texas, who encouraged us to express ourselves. And in fact, I shared some of my poems with her, and she encouraged me. And so that began, my lifelong journey through the years, writing poems as I went through the normal experiences of life, work, family, marriage, and all that. And I knew I'd always wanted to write a book. And then about 8, maybe 9 years ago, I woke up thinking, I know what to write my book about. I realized, I'll take some of the poems I wrote over the years that I think may be pretty good, and I'll start writing some newer material. And that's what you see now as the final product.
Thank you so much. And, it's funny hearing you talk about how you were influenced specifically by poetry, and I think we all have encountered that at some point, right? When we first encountered poetry or poetic writing that way. And I remember, right. For me, I remember reading Shakespeare or reading Maya Angelou and reading these poems and just being so taken by them. And, and I also kind of had that inspiration where I was like, I want to put my words like this and I want to write this way. Although for me, it never got past the roses are red, violets are blue phase. So it's good to know that you were able to continue to battle through that and really develop past that.
You don't give yourself enough credit there.
Well, some of those, some of them were pretty good, and they rhymed very well. So I guess maybe I have a future in it. Maybe I have a future.
Okay.
No, that's wonderful. And the follow-up question that I was going to ask about that was really, how did you get started writing poetry? And you're talking about how, of course, you wanted to express yourself creatively, but because of the medical condition that you had, sports was never something that you could really get into that way. And listening to that particular album, that's really where the influence came from. Now, is there anything else that influenced you in particular in terms of writing poetry, or was really that the defining moment?
Well, as I remember in my freshman year of college, I took English courses, and I had two really wonderful professors. One was named Robert Tippett, and the other was an Eric Shumway. And this is going back a ways, but they just their teaching as they taught about literature and the wonderfulness of words, their power, how beautiful they can be, and how they just enhanced or increased that love of mine for words and to try to express things. And I remember Professor Tippett, he read one of my poems. In fact, it's in the book. It's called The Brown Bakery Cart. And he encouraged me with that, and I kept working on it. But I was just blessed to have really good teachers. And my mom and dad were very literate people. They loved to read. And so from them, I picked up the love for reading and for words. And so they inspired me as well, just from their example.
Wonderful. Being a creative person myself, and I am in a completely different medium. I'm an actor and a filmmaker here based out in Los Angeles now, but coming from a creative family that I come from, of course, my father, Al Cole, a musician and also a writer. I always love to figure out where that creative spark developed in others, right? And how that snowflake eventually accumulates into a snowball as things kind of continue to develop and travel that way. So it's always fascinating to me.
And if I may add it, Benji, and with a poem, there's a creative spark that happens that leads to that writing of that poem.
Yeah, no, for sure. And it's beautiful. Again, as you put it, really how powerful certain forms of really poetry across the board, but obviously for each individual person, certain poems resonate more than others. But as I stated, I mean, I was someone that was very big from a very early age. I was very much into Shakespeare, very much into Maya Angelou. My grandmother is a huge Maya Angelou fan. So I, of course, was reading her poetry at a very early age. And I even, when I was in junior high, got very into Edgar Allan Poe and really primarily his stories. But then I started to get into his poetry as well. And, a lot of different ways in art, just in general. I think speaking, and again, of course, I'm biased because I'm an artist this way, but I think that art is such a form that doesn't get enough appreciation. You hear a lot of times about how a lot of these schools across the country are, getting funding cut from their arts programs and things that when I feel like that's a huge disservice. And it is definitely an art form that is undervalued, in my opinion. And I'll end it there because I can go on a tangent forever about that. But let's stay focused. It's not the purposes of this interview. Guys, again, here on the line with Brent Asay discussing his book, Endless Horizons, Journeys Within a Journey. Now, Brent, moving on, in terms of the research that you did with this book, I mean, really, we know how it developed. We know the creative inspiration, and we know the inspiration really just in terms of poetry for you. Was there any additional research that you did in preparation for this book, or was it just more so the poetry that you had written over the years and your personal experiences that really were the guiding force behind writing the book?
Well, it was mostly personal experiences and trying to write about those experiences in a way that others could relate to. And then there's one poem I had to do some research on. It's called Wake Up Call. It's a baseball poem, and so I had to do some research on that. But most of them didn't really have to do much research. It's a lot of it's based on places I've been, things I've experienced. I had one poem I wrote about Beale Street in Memphis, Tennessee, and I mean, just being there, experiencing that musical scene is all the research you need. And so stuff like that, where
Absolutely.
you just have this hands-on experience, living in the moment kind of thing, and
and a lot of times that's really all you need, right? I mean, we're talking about life experiences. What more research can you do aside from the experiences taken from your own life, right?
Right.
Wonderful. Now, as we tie up here, Brent, the last question that I really would want to go, and again, as we've stated, there's so many nuances to this book. So I know it's going to be hard in terms of one particular theme or one particular message that we really want to be able to get across to our listening audience. But if you're up for the challenge, if you had to put it in one particular message that you really want our audience here at People of Distinction to be able to pull from this interview that you think that they have to know about Endless Horizons, Journeys Within a Journey, what would that message be?
Yeah, it would be that even our ordinary experiences of life can have rich meaning. We live in a place of emotions all our lives, and we want to seek for love more than hatred. We want the positive more than the negative, the good more than the evil, and so hope and putting up a good fight against adversity that comes our way. Because as you said earlier, everything happens for a reason. I believe that. And
absolutely.
Yeah.
And guys, really, what more do we need, and what more of a powerful message can we pull from, especially given this current time that we're all facing with this pandemic?
Right.
We're all in a bit of facing a bit of adversity as of right now, and If there's if there's nothing else to be gained from this book other than lessons to be learned through everything that we're facing, what are the lessons that we can pull from this pandemic? And really not only the pandemic itself, but about what it's showing us in life. I know for me, as I'm sure it is with everybody else, life has shifted and altered tremendously since the start of this pandemic. But what I found, and I remember I was talking to a friend of mine a few days ago and I was relaying this to him, what I found is that my life prior to this pandemic was a little bit backwards, in the sense of I always was that hamster wheel on the wheel, just constantly going, and always, going to work or going to this or going to that. Where now, even though I'm being forced to do it, it's one thing that I have actually been able to gain a lot of appreciation for, in terms of the amount of time that I'm just spending with my friends and with my loved ones, and not being so driven by work or by financial means that way. I look at it as it's almost a blessing in disguise. And the lesson to be learned here from me is, once things start to go back to normal, or if they ever go back to normal as we used to know it, but once things start to kind of get back into that frenzy where people are going back to work and doing all that, to always remember really what is important. And at the end of the day, of course, going to work and accumulating financial status that way, let's not be naive. We need money in order to be able to live, right? So you can't get away from the work that you have to do. But at the end of the day, ultimately knowing who is important and what is important in your life, those are the things that you want to be spending the most time doing. Wonderful message here. Brent, thank you for bringing this to our table. Guys, one last time, just finished discussing Endless Horizons, Journeys Within a Journey, available on Brent's personal website at authorBrentAsay.com. That's author, traditional spelling, Brent, BrentAsay.com, as well as authorspress.com. Brent Asay, thank you so much for being a guest with us, man, and bringing this book to our table. We truly appreciated it.
No, that was just like a conversation. I loved it. Yeah, and I want to thank you and tell you I'm impressed with your research of my book before the interview. That was cool. Thank you, Benji.